It's WVUA News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Tamika Alexander. Thanks for joining us. Sandy is no longer a hurricane, but still a ferocious weather system barreling down on the East Coast. More than 3 million people are without power tonight. Kieran Khalid is live with the very latest.
Sandy made landfall just a few hours ago, leaving a path of destruction in her wake. Already 2.8 million people are without power tonight. As Sandy barrels into the eastern seaboard, the storm is no longer a hurricane, but it's just as dangerous. This crane atop a New York City skyscraper was no match for the ferocious winds. Crews are monitoring the danger. Buildings nearby have been evacuated, but until conditions improve, there's little that can be done.
But the instructions to all of them are, don't try to be a hero and lose a life over this. If something were to fall, just make sure that doesn't hurt anybody.
Up and down the coast, it's time to hunker down and wait.
This is the most catastrophic event that we have faced and been able to plan for in any of our lifetimes.
This system could be historic, stretching up the Atlantic as seen from the International Space Station. With crashing waves and flooding hours before the worst of the storm arrives. Meanwhile, officials urge those on land, evacuate if you are asked, stay home if you're not.
Heeding the warning, and we're going. And I'm hoping that I have a house when I come back.
And obstacles on the campaign trail, too. President Obama left Florida to head straight to Washington to deal with the storm.
We are certain that this is going to be a slow-moving process through a wide swath of the country, and millions of people are going to be affected.
And their families in harm's way that will be hurt, either in their possessions or perhaps in something more severe.
And absolutely, it's been more severe for some. We are learning tonight that there have been 10 fatalities associated with this storm in the United States alone. Reporting live from Lower Manhattan, I'm Kieran Khalid. Now back to you.
Now, one FEMA model shows this storm has the potential to cause up to $3 billion in wind damage alone. That does not factor in flooding damage. Hurricane Sandy has killed at least 67 people so far, most of them in Haiti as it went through the Caribbean last week. And speaking of the weather, let's get a first check on Alabama's home team forecast with Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott. Richard, lots of sunshine out there today, but still very chilly.
Yeah, Tamika, chilly and windy. That's thanks to post-tropical cyclone Sandy. The latest from the National Hurricane Center saying winds sustained still 75 miles per hour, even though it's not a classic hurricane anymore, still very dangerous. And what a deadly disaster happening for the eastern seaboard. I think the latest total now, 10 fatalities been reported across Northeast. In fact, with hurricane conditions along the coast, blizzard happening for parts of West Virginia, and the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. So certainly a wild storm to talk about, one we'll be talking about for many, many years. And hey, it is cold here locally tonight. That's thanks to what's left of Sandy still. Again, that post-tropical cyclone pulling some of that cold air down from the north. 46 now in Tuscaloosa. We'll likely have a freeze by early tomorrow morning across much of the area. 33 are bus stop forecast. Bundle up if you're heading out and about. Going to be cold and windy. Winds sustained around 15 tomorrow morning. When will the winds relax? And how about the Halloween Day forecast? Home team weather straight ahead. Stick around.
Thanks, Richard. Now on to Sandy's effects here in West Alabama. We may not see the flooding or storm surge the eastern seaboard is dealing with right now, but Sandy's winds are causing different weather issues hundreds of miles away here in Tuscaloosa County. WVUA's Travis Leader tells us what we need to look out for.
That's right. Sandy's strong gusts are reaching as far south as West Alabama.
So we have a windy day out there. You probably noticed winds gusting as high as 35 miles per hour, and that causes some issues with fire danger.
And with no recent rainfall, these winds have crews already trying to contain brush fires, like this one on Rose Boulevard in Northport.
With this and lack of rain we've had for the past several weeks has really made for some dry conditions.
Local fire chiefs say because of these dry and windy conditions, it's likely we may see some more fires in the county.
We're really afraid that this kind of situation can spread. We're hoping people will be more careful at this time than any other.
And forecasters are saying some should just use a little common sense until conditions improve.
Don't start a fire now. Wait till the winds calm down. In fact, I'd advise you wait till the next rain event before starting a fire.
It may be second nature when you fool with a small fire, but really it has the potential to spread and be something horrific.
Scott says the winds will calm down later in the week. In Tuscaloosa County, Travis Leader, WVUA News.
Disaster is something Alabama is familiar with, and organizations across the state are preparing to send relief to the East Coast. The American Red Cross has over 160 emergency response vehicles in place on the coast. West Alabama had 2 volunteers leave this afternoon in the Tuscaloosa response truck. The volunteers are headed to Princeton, New Jersey, where they will serve hot meals, first aid, and give out bottled waters. Holly Maxwell with the West Alabama chapter of the American Red Cross says the April 27th tornado has us all ready to help others in a state of emergency.
I'll tell you, here in Alabama, our volunteers are a lot more prepared than they were perhaps prior to the April 27th storms. Certainly with our state being so devastated by such catastrophic events, we had volunteers who responded. We had more who decided that they wanted to be trained.
And speaking of travel, Amtrak has canceled its services along the East Coast and the South, at least through tomorrow. Now, this affects the station in Tuscaloosa. Amtrak says they will refund people affected. The company has also agreed to help customers reschedule rides and has agreed to pay the difference in fares. And a spokesperson for the Birmingham Shuttlesworth International Airport says Birmingham is already experiencing flight delays and cancellations. The spokesperson tells us anyone traveling should contact your airline before going to the airport to see if your flight has been canceled. You can find the contact information on the Birmingham Airport's website. Well, in Tuscaloosa County, investigators are now saying the search for someone who jumped from a bridge stemmed from a prank, and they're facing some serious consequences. The Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Department says the search ended this morning when a YouTube video surfaced of a white male jumping from the Northport toll bridge into the Black Warrior River. Sergeant Andy Norris says the male in the video has since turned himself in. Authorities are interviewing him. Norris says the suspect could face federal charges at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because of the lengthy search for him. Norris has a stern warning for other thrill seekers.
If you're going to do something like this and you think it's cool to wear one of these cameras on your head, maybe a GoPro camera or something of that nature, and you're going to post it on YouTube, you might get your 15 minutes of fame, but we're going to come after you, whether it be criminally or civilly, in this case also federally.
Now, aside from charges from the Corps of Engineers, the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Department is seeking repayment for the search. Norris says the suspect could face further state charges as well. Well, what started as a noise complaint ended with one man accused of attempted murder. Tuscaloosa police say they got a call on a noise complaint around 1:30 this morning on 1st Avenue, and officers ended up chasing one of the men on the scene. Police say 21-year-old Henry Patrick McGee Jr. fired a shot at an officer. Officers were able to find McGee with the help of a search dog. No one was injured. McGee is charged with 1 count of attempted murder, and he is in the Tuscaloosa County Jail on a $60,000 bond. Well, even though Sandy is making our weather chilly here in West Alabama, people are still going outdoors to celebrate Halloween. In fact, many groups gathered at the Gorgas House Museum and the Alabama Museum of Natural History to learn all the spooky details on the history of the University of Alabama.
Everyone from Cinderella to Dorothy flocked to the steps of Smith Hall for a haunted ghost tour. Despite the chilling weather, people followed the lantern of museum naturalist Todd Hester, who grabs people's attention with the university's haunting past.
The university was established in 1831, and if you look at the Gorgas House, it dates to 1829. So we have a very rich and very long history, and so obviously we're going to have some turbulent times with the Civil War and things that happened to the university. So there's always some really interesting history and some, anecdotal stories that have come out of that.
The steps to nowhere are one of the stories Todd tells. They are the ruins of Madison Hall Dormitory, which was burned in the 1964 raid. Though only steps remain, Madison is still present.
On windless nights, when the moon is just right, when you walk through that area of the quad, you can smell a really strong odor of smoke in the air.
After the tour, kids made glittery masks, drank spooky punch, and colored. For some, the tour made the university a spooky place.
Our tour guide was telling us a couple of scary stories, and right when he said, okay, I'm going to tell you some things about the campus you might not know and might not want to know, then Denny chimes started chiming.
The event had packed tours, and the parents were grateful for the spooky free entertainment.
Thank you, UA. We had a blast.
Reporting in Tuscaloosa, Molly Mitchell, WVUA News.
And on the other side of campus, Halloween came a little early for children who visited the capstone this evening. The annual Sorority Row Trick or Treat gives children a chance to visit each sorority house, participate in a variety of activities, and of course, get lots of candy. WVUA's Courtney Highfield has more.
The University of Alabama's Sorority Row was full of ghosts and goblins tonight. Their annual Sorority Row Trick or Treat welcomed families from all over Tuscaloosa to participate in the fun. Parents say this is one of the areas they feel safe bringing their children to.
It's a safe environment, and it's during the day.
The street's blocked off and know the area. I think it's a very safe area to bring him out.
I would definitely say it's a safer place to trick or treat around, just because, you know, it's a college campus, it's safe to begin with, and it's all just a bunch of little kids trick or treating and then older sorority girls. So I would definitely say parents probably feel safer bringing their kids here.
And residents of Tuscaloosa think it's important for the community to provide safer areas to trick or treat.
Just the other day I was reading about how Halloween is a very high time for pedestrian injuries, so knowing that there's a place like this is really helpful.
Well, if you don't provide a place like this where it's allowed to come in and trick or treat for the public, then they choose neighborhoods in the area where they just go and trick or treat, and they park and they make it unsafe there.
They also told us what some of the most popular costumes are this year.
A lot of superheroes. I've seen Honey Boo Boo a few times, but mainly just the commercial characters.
Boys, of course, are dressed up as superheroes, and then there are a bunch of girls dressed up as ballerinas and cheerleaders and stuff kind of like that. A bunch of football players also.
Reporting in Tuscaloosa, Courtney Highfield, WVUA News.
Tonight's event was put on by the University of Alabama Panhellenic Association, National Panhellenic Council, and the United Greek Council. Well, when WVUA News at 10 returns, the election is just days away, and if you do not plan on going to the polls in person, we'll have the details on the last day to apply for an absentee ballot. And the always entertaining Danny Sheridan was in Tuscaloosa this evening. Gary Harris will have the story in Alabama's home team sports.